Good morning, Morehouse family. Let's do that again. Good morning, Morehouse family. My name is Cameron Markel Nolan, and I am pleased to preside as the MC for today's Crown Forum. In 2019, I won the same competition, so I vividly remember the excitement that our orators are experiencing right now. Formally, I want to welcome you all to the 2025 Otis Moss Jr. and Otis Moss III Oratorical Contest. I am certain that you will enjoy today's contest, hearing words of wisdom from well-crafted and delivered speeches from our students. Seated before you all are the contestants and Dr. Leah Criquet, who chairs this annual contest. This contest will provide according to the program, which you can find on the QR code listed. Students, if you must leave before the program, please respect the orators and leave quietly. Now, before we begin, I would like to offer the invocation from the 2024 second place winner, Mr. Harlem Henderson.
Good morning, men of Morehouse. I have a prayer in the form of a short poem for our brothers. My blackness is bolder than what the blind set their eyes on. Don't let me raise a closed fist, otherwise you have an icon. Before God made light, a black universe was bygone. When you're pro-black, you're pro-charge. We're protons, not ions. Blackness was there day one. Before stars, it's what the sky dawned. God speaks thunder on blackness. To speak black means the mic is strong. Blackness is justice. We judge wrong rights and right wrongs. After birth, light is time being. Before that, black was lifelong. Black rap made ice thaw, jazz kept lights on, and I'm talking real blues, not talking about a light song. We all know the presence of a black queen, a black king, versus the presence of a white pawn. As Christ was the manifestation of God's word in the flesh, so too are our Morehouse speakers, the embodiment of the black spirit. Morehouse men, speak as you always do. Speak your very best. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Harlem. The annual Otis Moss Jr. and Otis Moss III Oratorical Contest has become a time-honored tradition at Morehouse College that celebrates the iconic oratory of Dr. Otis Moss Jr., class of 1956, and Dr. Otis Moss III, class of 1992. We appreciate the Moss family for their endowment of this treasured tradition at Morehouse College. Today, we will experience the riveting oratory of Morehouse College students in their delivery of speeches that addresses the theme, Black Moral Imagination. For many years, Dr. Allison Liggison, Associate Professor of English and Interim Chair of the Department of English, has served as the co-chair of this event. I would like to also recognize the judges and timekeepers for today's competition. I ask that they please stand and the audience hold their applause until all have been recognized. Dr. Nathaniel Norman, Professor of English and Director of the Writing Center and Black Ink Project. Dr. Jaime Chavez, Assistant Professor of Spanish. Dr. Tara Taylor, Assistant Professor of Sociology. Professor Winfred Rice, Adjunct Professor of Religion. And our timekeepers, Omar Colbreth Jr., Morehouse Class of 2026, and Mr. Chase Cunningham, Morehouse Class of 2027. May we please give them all a hand. Now, without any further ado, let the competition begin. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Amari Coleman. I am a freshman computer science major from South Jersey. As I reflect on the Black moral imagination, I acknowledge a vision of a future that is built solely by us. To reach this future, we must first acknowledge the principles of ethical leadership, community uplift, and integrity. They serve as a compass for such a vision, guiding us through the unmapped social territories of an ever-changing world and a fractured nation. This was the same vision that fueled our ancestors in their climb towards an existence beyond the lash. Recall the Underground Railroad, where the courageous dream of an unbound existence was met with the determination to make it real. It wasn't the work of one individual. It was a collective effort, a web of brave souls risking everything because they believed in, and by natural extension, needed a better future. This too is the essence of the Black moral imagination, the ability to imagine freedom and the courage to bring it to fruition. From a saddeningly realistic perspective, we merely force ourselves beyond one form of hell only to face another. Yet still, our dream persisted. Our imagination endured. Think back to the Civil Rights Movement, a time when the members of our community stood as a unified force against the pains of racial discrimination and brutality. The sit-ins, the marches, and the boycotts were all manifestations of the Black moral imagination. They were statements that a different world was not only possible, but necessary. It could only be brought forth unto reality by those who knew what it meant to be undivided. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a son of Morehouse and eternally a brother to us all, taught us that the arc of the moral universe bends towards justice. In addendum, it is my conviction that it can only bend if we, the sufferers, are the ones to bend it. At present, I look at our existence and I find myself concerned. The citizens of this nation are divided, at odds with themselves over issues of class, race, and basic human dignity. We see the growing gap between the rich and the poor. We see the ongoing struggle for racial justice as if nothing has changed for centuries. We see the erasure of our history before our very eyes. And while technology has connected us in such beautiful, brilliant ways, granting us a platform to express our voice, it has amplified disinformation and division. Our peace, which we have bled for and continue to do so to this day, is threatened in ways that should terrify us all to our core. My goal is not to nurture that fear further, no, but to encourage us to manifest it in ways that will truly bring the change we need in our lives. We are in a crisis, and we should be exhausted of saying so and doing nothing about it. The protests in response to the murder of George Floyd and the rapid resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement are modern testaments to the Black moral imagination. Yet, before our very eyes, these testaments are being silenced. Our demands for a better standard of living are being condemned for the same thing we have long suffered. Are we now the racist? Are we now the prejudiced? Are those who have oppressed us for centuries now the oppressed? This ignorant hypocrisy now fuels the engine on which the United States runs. My expectation of you as your brother is to sever the roots of this weed before it grows beyond our purview. Acknowledge corruption, acknowledge hypocrisy, and acknowledge ignorance, and thwart them wherever you are. A core value of the Black moral imagination is the ability to inspire those around you. As I stated, our peace is threatened, and I am exhausted of doing nothing about it. Thus, a question must be posed. What can we do? It is not a matter of can anymore. That time has passed. It is now a matter of must. We must embolden one another to question, to scrutinize, and to extend our courage to others. To bring forth the change that will guide us to a brighter future, we must first inspire. Thank you.
My name is Aaron Doss. I'm a freshman biology major from O'Fallon, Illinois, and today I will be talking about how to lead in the 21st century. We live in a period where hate and lies are at their highest. Stories are spun to perpetuate distrust between the people of the United States. These lies are emphasized within the untamed circles of social media. News was reported not with the intent of informing the people, but instead to persuade the people into thinking a certain way. Hate is the leading tool used by many of our current leaders to build a following. Many who subscribe to the idea of faith disregard its true teachings and instead use it as a vessel for their bigoted ideas. Those who promote the true ideas of faith are threatened and labeled as traitors to the country. So, where do we go from here? How do we progress past this era of negativity? The lessons taught about resilience, humility, and integrity will help us succeed during this time. The moral lessons upheld by the Black moral imagination will offer a way for us to both overcome and combat the current challenges. Going forward, our education is the key to progress. As a leader, it is of utmost importance that you inspire others. There must be a distinction between thinking you are the only one who speaks the truth and putting people on the path to seek the truth. Your job is not to be a messiah, but someone who's in service to help people strive for better lives. Movements are not run by one person, but a unit. Dr. Martin Luther King was an important figure in the civil rights movement, but he wasn't the only leader. It was the combined effort of many activists who inspired others, just as he did, to fight for justice. Humility is one of the greatest traits one could have during this time. The truth has become sparse in the past couple of years. Lies are being told to create paranoia and hate for our fellow neighbor. Our history is being removed from curriculums because it makes others uncomfortable. Empathy is met with shame and threats. Our education is the key to maneuvering through an era of misinformation. Take time to learn about history and faith on your own accord. Knowing your worth, not only as a Black man or woman, but as a person, is more important than ever. As stated before, humility is key in leading others. You should not present yourself as the sole source of truth, but aim to inspire others who listen to you to follow a similar path of education. Obstacles are to be expected no matter what we do. There are going to be people who don't want change, who want things to stay corrupted because it keeps them in power, or who simply disagree. When learning about Black history in America, one of the key traits I see is resilience. Many of our greatest leaders of the past displayed resilience constantly during their fight for justice. What we can learn from this is to take setbacks in stride. Instead of shutting down when something goes wrong, regroup with the people you work with and discuss where to go from there and what went wrong. We must follow suit of our past leaders and stay determined so that the future generations live without the struggles that we have today. Our education is the key to progressing in this country. The Black moral imagination gives us lessons in humility, resilience, and integrity. These lessons are made to build leaders who prioritize helping their communities, who know how to get back up and fight for what's right, and who stay true to themselves and their beliefs. Without our education, we would not be well equipped to deal with the challenges we have today and for those that have yet to come. The value in our education is that it gives us skills to lead our fellow people into a promising future. Thank you.
Greetings, my name is George Gatling III, a graduating senior religion major from Greensboro, North Carolina, and I stand before you today to present a speech entitled Maroon culture activating art. The Black moral imagination is the ability to envision an ethical and equitable society that services the needs and demands of Black people while concurrently avoiding the degradation of others. W.E.B. Du Bois once eloquently posited, and I quote, "The function of art is to do more than tell it like it is. It's to imagine what is possible." For hundreds of years, our people have thrived and survived on the foundations of our hopes and dreams. Their courage to enact upon revelation gave birth to culture. Culture is the driving force behind Black communal progression. Culture is the Black moral imagination personified. Culture is what happened in 1963 when Reverend King told us of his dream, or in 1989 when Spike Lee told us to do the right thing. Yet today, the waters of culture appear to be stagnant and untroubled. As the blank canvas of possibility awaits its next craftsman, it would not be facetious to posit or suggest that the next Black moral artist walks the holy grounds of Morehouse College. It indeed would be sacrilegious to overlook the impending mirage of maroon dominion and talent, as Mother Morehouse indeed holds a crown above all of our heads that she dares us to grow tall enough to wear. Endless pursuit of the crown is endless pursuit of evolution, which thereby is needed to nurture Black possibility. Black art forms have continually embodied the moral and spiritual struggles of our people, both domestically and abroad. Storytelling has been a pillar within our community since the days of enslavement. From the Negro spirituals bellowed in cotton fields to the street chants barked in Ferguson, Missouri, the songs of the struggle have sustained our people in our weary years and our silent tears. If it were not for the griots and the songwriters, Black sorrow would reside in the abyss of silence. Keith Elam, late Morehouse alumnus formerly known as Guru, certainly would agree in his song that he wrote with Gangstar entitled "Who's Going to Take the Weight?" In that song, he challenges us all to acknowledge the societal pressures that oppress, suppress, and depress our people every single day. Today, I stand before you begging the same question: which one of you, which one of us is going to take on the weight? Gone are the days of allowing potential to lie dormant in your chest. Gone are the days of being paralyzed by fear and rejection. Gone are the days of avoiding knowledge and critique. For the world craves the next social engineer that will step boldly into the forefront of the movement and take control of the society that we wish to live in. Today, I implore you to acknowledge that you too are gifted with the bless of life. As long as you have breath, you can dream, innovate, and create. Possibility awaits. And as I leave you with this quote by Tupac Amaru Shakur, and I quote, "Reality is wrong. Dreams are for real," end quote. Dream on, brothers. Thank you for your time.
Good morning. I'm Jeremiah Lither, a junior sociology major from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and today I invite you to journey with me into the heart of the Black moral imagination. It is no secret that Black men are placed in a peculiar position. We must understand that in the 21st century, there is something inherently demoralizing about maturing as a Black man in society. The hypermasculine shadow cast upon Black men looms large, painted as predators, forged as foes, actualized in the 9 minutes and 29 seconds that George Floyd laid on the concrete, crying out for his mother. This positionality puts us in a center of suffering. Despite this positionality, these arduous experiences can also allow for a unique moral clarity. Lebanese poet Khalil Gibran notes that the strongest souls emerge out of suffering, the most massive character sealed with scars. The beauty of the Black experience is this: we take those ashes of agony and fashion them into altars of resilience. Compassion is often the byproduct of our suffering. Morehouse extends that moral clarity with its mission. The lessons taught at this institution reach far deeper and inspire a greater meaning. Through virtues like humanity and compassion, the Morehouse ethic teaches that confining our service to these four walls is a disservice not only to our communities, but to ourselves. We must understand that this positionality of the black male and the Morehouse ethic are inextricably linked. In this intellectual arms race where the hurdles we face are constantly raised, we still leap beyond what the world requires, and the question begs, how can this 157-year tradition confront our current reality? In an era marked by technological progress, we are conversely in a time of moral decay. We lament the rise of artificial intelligence, blind to the truth that we already dwell in an augmented reality rife with cognitive dissonance. An augmented reality where apathy, to the point of disparaging one's humanity, is commonplace. An augmented reality where in America, as a felon, you cannot own a gun. But in America, a felon is now in charge of the most powerful military in the world. It is up to us, those who know what it means to suffer, those Thurman called the disinherited, to create a better standard of how we can alleviate that suffering. If the charge is too complicated, there is a common theme that undergirds every part of the Morehouse ethic. We hear it more than we know: love. Love the seed, love the soil, love the sustenance that grows the black moral imagination, love down to the first moment you entered the gates of 830 Westview Drive and heard, "I've got my brother's back." What is the black moral imagination? It is yes to no suffering, it is yes to suffer, but to love anyway. Thank you.
Greetings and peace be upon all who dwell in this hallowed place at this appointed time. I am Cavian Ray, a graduating senior political science and religion major from Cordell by way of Rochelle, Georgia. It is in the name of truth, love, virtue, and in the name of a God concerned about the oppressed and disinherited that I stand before you. For when God speaks, who can but prophesy? To President Thomas, noble faculty and staff, and esteemed brethren, men of Morehouse, heirs to this sacred fraternity, this hallowed ground of whom that profound academician and sixth president Benjamin Elijah Mays wrote, "There is an air of expectancy at Morehouse College. It is expected that once a man bears the insignia of a Morehouse graduate, he would do exceptionally well. We expect nothing less. At some point in a man's life, no doubt in a Morehouse man's life, there ought to come a day and a time when he must stand before the mirror of self-evaluation, spiritual motivation, and certainly socio-economic liberation, and wrestle truthfully with the question, am I truly a Morehouse man, or am I merely a man? I understand and empathize with the pacing back and forth and your minds contemplating whether or not your check was good at the exchequer of intellectuality, moral aptitude, and social revolution to purchase for yourselves the privilege to join the ranks of those great sons who have gone on to grow tall enough to wear their crowns. Nevertheless, it would be sin if I gave unto you a watered down and pleasant word. Brothers, for me now, it is nearly 4 years since I received that burden that every Morehouse man must, at the hands of the incomparable Dr. Ann Watts. In essence, we made a vow to allow Mother Morehouse to groom us into men conscious about society, men conscious about spirituality, and most certainly men obsessed with integrity. No, I say unto you this day, Gone is the time where a college degree guaranteed employment. Gone are the sympathizers seeking to lift those who have no boots. Gone are the days when the government was invested in the education of black men. Gone are the days when the culture applauded academicians, preachers, and teachers. Still, with lackluster funding and a lack of state-of-the-art facilities, the engine of this place, which is fueled by social justice and the love of God, is still producing top-of-the-line product. We must ask ourselves, where we men of Morehouse find our niche in 21st century America? An America where we are applauded for being wasted on the 4th of July, but condemned for stirring up the past by participating in a commemorative march for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Mays went on to say, I am disturbed, I am uneasy about men, because there is no guarantee when we train a man's mind, we will train a man's heart. Some odd 200 years earlier, Watts wrote, I must be measured by my soul. The mind is the standard of the man. Yes, in this epic of history, we must come to see that intellectual property, technology, and machines have more investment than we do as human beings. Essentially, that is where the Morehouse man arrives. Like David with his sling and smooth stones, the stones of maladjustment, revolutionary change, and social consciousness. Mrs. King, the late widow of Morehouse's greatest son, said, struggle is a never-ending process. Freedom is never really won. You win it and earn it in every generation. Gentlemen, therefore, find your Goliath. Yes, that is the legacy of this sacred heritage. Where there is strife and oppression, the Morehouse man is to excavate the social ethos of that day and transcend the hearts of men as the master did. Out of one blood, I heard Paul decree that God made all men. So now I say unto you once more, who are you? Will you return to your homes and leave them as they were? Will the hood remain in shambles? Or will it be this generation of Morehouse men that will leave this world in awe? Will you seek political office for ambition or for revolutionary change? Will you take that pulpit and bleed on the congregation? Or will you leave the comfort of stained glass windows and be about your father's business? Will Morehouse hold his head in grief that you matriculated here? Or will Morehouse hold his head in honor that you matriculated here? And ever the persistent question, will God with tears turn toward the host of heaven and declare what a waste? Or will he turn to them and say, if there was ever one, surely he'd come out of Morehouse. Be men, but be Morehouse men. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Michael Simmons. I am a junior educational studies major, English minor from St. Louis, Missouri. And if I had to give this a title, it would be Selfless Imagination. Before I knew the intricacies of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s personhood, I knew of his prophetic imagination, an imagination that inspired and continues to inspire generations. Dr. King embodied a divinely distributed kind of dreaming that, unlike traditional dreaming, was not inspired by an idealized version of a world informed by a desolate reality. No, his dreaming was inspired by a greater prophetic vision, rooted in a kind of love he could only imagine. His imaginative articulations planted a curiosity within me, one that begged the question, how can I dream like that? My answer was found within the liminal pages of Black American history, decorated with a pattern of selfless imagination, guided by a grounding spiritual force much larger than that of human conception. This selfless imagination required an upward gaze that encouraged visionary leaders to look beyond practicality and expect the impossible, feel the intangible, and see the invisible. It is the same gaze that was required to follow the guide of the North Star or to see the freedom atop the heads of marchers. Because as the psalmist reminds us, it is when our heads are lifted that we witness the omnipotent power and the transcendent power of an omnipotent divine. This selfless imagination enabled a kind of intellectual time travel that facilitated the foresight of Moses, Harriet Tubman, and Dr. King alike. Whether they saw a promised land, a promised north, or a promising mountaintop, these leaders were blessed with an optimistic premonition of the world that would be if only the masses would release their dreams from the shackles of oppression. Living in a capitalistic society undergirded with the culture of white supremacy encourages one's imagination to be set on personal and materialistic gain, goals that provide a degree of separation between you and the next. However, a selfless imagination governs with the servant leadership that Morehouse instills within us. It recognizes a cultural shift that glorifies individualism, but remains rooted in an ancestral call to community that develops our advancement as a collective people. This Black moral imagination inspires the future by recognizing the challenges of the present while holding steadfast to the timeless truth of the past that love indeed liberates. So, brothers, while I do not know the answer to curating a culture conducive of the collective success of everyone, I do understand that the patterns of history encourage us to dream fearlessly, love unrelentingly, and imagine selflessly. Imagine with the freedom of knowing you may never benefit from your dream becoming reality, but with an audacious hope that eventually your descendants will be heirs of a world you could only imagine. Because how dare a people who endured the unfathomable, sacrificed the unattainable, and persevered through the unimaginable dare to believe that one day their children would be able to do more than merely survive? It's because of those dreams, because of their prayers, and because of a selfless obligation to imagination that we possess the privilege to imagine even more wildly than our ancestors ever thought possible. I conclude with one culminating question. How selfless is your imagination? If unsure, I would prompt you to Dr. King's seemingly precarious prediction of his demise, saying, I may not get there with you, but we as a people will see the promised land. That we is indicative of an understanding that our connection transcends a seeable timeline, but includes those of us in the past, present, and future. Use this concept as a framework, for the time of selfless imagination is now. Thank you.
Good morning. Do I need to put this? Okay. Good morning. My name is Lyndon Young. I am a proud junior philosophy major from Columbus, Ohio. And the title of my oration is Give Me That Old Morehouse Spirit. Tell me how I made it over. We had a mighty hard time coming on over. And my soul looks back and wonders, how did I make it over? Songs like these have been a mainstay in the African American cultural consciousness. These life-filled lamentations are rooted in a shared past of injustice and oppression, yet hope remains present always. It should not be surprising that a people who have faced such turbulence would ask that existential and even metaphysical question, how did I make it over? But this question is not merely a historical concern, but a present one as well. In the past few weeks, many of us have seen the blatantly anti-black and more broadly anti-human policies pushed by politicians from a house the same color as the people it was meant to benefit. As this country moves backwards in an attempt to make America great again, the songs of our people remind us that the Black moral imagination must continue to peer past hills of adversity and continue to walk forward even when the path is unclear. Morehouse College has been so important to the cultivation of the Black moral imagination because of its 157-year history of creating socially minded men with a passion for changing the conditions of marginalized people. Now, while there is no singular moral mode of operation for Morehouse students, alumni, and faculty, there is a pervasive ethical spirit that underlies much of the moral sensibilities of the people that make up this institution. That ethical spirit, I believe, was best articulated by our sixth president, Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays, when he said, "It will not be sufficient for Morehouse College to produce clever graduates, but rather honest men who are sensitive to the wrongs, the sufferings, and the injustices of society, and who are willing to accept responsibility for correcting the ills." End quote. Morehouse College has never been merely interested in producing men with capable brains. Instead, the chief concern has always been, and hopefully will always be, to develop men with a capable heart, which leads them to action. The importance of an active heart ought not be undermined. Just think about it. We live in a world whose interests have shifted in directions that cannot be tolerated by the active heart. For example, instead of cultivating spaces of learning, all across this country, historically black colleges are losing funding. Instead of using technology as a tool for human development, many have instead chosen to allow artificial intelligences to overtake their natural mental faculties. Instead of embracing the fact that we all live in community with one another and have made it over together, many have chosen to adopt individualism and capitalism as their moral framework. This is why institutions like Morehouse College are so important, because in this new generation, the rational mind will not sustain us. We require strong hearts and even greater wills to continue the fight, even when there is no promise of benefit for oneself. So to my brothers, I ask you to commit yourself to be sensitive and then to serve. But to those external entities that attempt to gain influence in this institution and take us from the path our forebears gave to us, and to those who keep finding new ways to oppress and suppress, and to those who have allowed despair to overtake hope, and to those who have adopted Western individualism and think the almighty dollar will save them, I have a war cry for you. Give me that old Morehouse spirit. It's good enough for me. Give me that spirit of intellectual development that was good enough for Dr. Walter Eugene Massey. Give me that spirit of divine understanding that was good enough for Dr. Howard Washington Thurman. Give me that spirit of service and care that was good enough for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Give me that old Morehouse spirit, because I will accept nothing less. Thank you.
What a wonderful group of orators we have at Morehouse. Please give them another hand. I'm certain you are eager as I am to determine who the winners will be. And so in order to find out, you must be present at next week's Crown Forum. So I'll look forward to seeing you there at that time. In the interim, we will all stand together and sing the college hymn.